welcome, and it's really awesome to see you guys all here this evening. I'm Candice. I am part of the Pātaka Kai team in Tāmaki Makaurau, and so I'm an Aucklander, born and bred. My whānau come from the far north, up around the Manganui area and the Taranaki area, but I'm an Aucklander, South Aucklander to be more specific, and with that comes certain mindsets and a certain community spirit that was actually the birth of this kaupapa as it stands. So Pātaka Kai, the concept itself, it's not new. We had actual pātaka on pā and on marae back in the day when we were still living that way. And 4 years ago, a friend of mine saw the need within her community to help her neighbours to access food, because she was, at the time, she was working, volunteering at a local soup kitchen, and she found that a lot of the community weren't actually going to the soup kitchen to have dinner, but she knew that they were in need of food. And this is Swanee Nelson. So she was our founder, and she's gone on to do amazing things in the community and left it to me to take the reins and look after everybody that's come through since then in the past 4 years. So I am currently a volunteer again. So I was paid for a minute by the charitable trust that has Pātaka Kai and other initiatives, but I've since changed jobs and now I'm back to being a volunteer. I don't actually have a Pātaka Kai myself anymore. This one in my picture is mine, but it now lives at the Otara Kai village in the Otara town centre, and my colleagues, my ex-colleagues there, look after it now. There's a lot to cover, but I'm going to try and make it as quick as possible so we can get over to you guys and your questions, because I'm guessing you already have questions that you'd like answered. So let's just get into it. So off the bat, I just wanted to, it's not to be negative or not to put a damper on things, but there are misconceptions about Pātaka Kai and what we are and what we do. So sometimes when people are coming on board, they think that by registering, that means they're going to get set up with one of these and there's going to be a regular food donation coming through to their location, and that's just not the case. So by registering with Pātaka Kai, what you won't get is funding, because we don't want anyone to rely on financial resource to run their Pātaka Kai, because there are food resources within communities that are being wasted that can be tapped into. And we'll, of course, talk you through how to do that. You won't get a ready-made pantry, because those also cost money, and we are looking after the whole of Aotearoa. And you won't get food to stock your pantry directly from us, but what you may get is contacts to big businesses, supermarkets, or them contacting you through us by being registered and having your information on our website. So there's different reasons why people start a Pātaka Kai in their community. It could be as a response to food insecurity. So in South Auckland, we see a fair bit of poverty, and our hearts go out to that kaupapa in particular. Also in places like Glen Eden, which is in West Auckland, their main priority seems to be geared more towards waste minimization. So off the back of that, you can have other kaupapa surrounding it. So you might have a Pātaka Kai, and because you're dealing with waste minimization, you also do things like run bokashi or how to worm farm, and that those are awesome things that can come off the back of starting a Pātaka Kai in your community and bringing everyone together. And some people just do it because they want a stronger community. They want to have a central point for the community to gather and meet, and just to meet each other and, and love each other, pretty much. Just to love on each other and enjoy their community, and not be isolated. That's another thing that happened in the earlier days, was that we were finding a lot of people who had previously been isolated were starting to come out of their shells more. They were getting out in the community, meeting their neighbors and feeling more comfortable in that way. So that was awesome. What myself and our network can do for you as registered kaitiaki is networking, affiliation. When we have large donations and corporate support come through, we can be the middleman between that and you. And some tips to start out with: builds, running support. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave the next part of my kōrero out because I think that it's going to be answered through your guys' questions. So, yep, cool. I reckon I'm pretty open to questions now. Otherwise, I'll just be like reading from a book of this is how you do X, Y, Z.
Can I jump in?
Bye. Yep, let's go Milan. That's it.
So I help run a community garden with Elsa, whose camera's off. But we were wondering about design specifically. Are we able to access any design plans?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I'm actually going to share into the chat right now a link, which is just a Google form. And all it does is register your interest. It gives me your personal details, and so that I can get back to you with an actual package that will have designs. It will have any health and safety posters, our letterheads, and so you can use those to send through and get further support. So because we've been running for 4 years and we've got our website up, we've got Facebook and Instagram and all these things, it really helps with our new kaitiaki to just basically say, like, I'm part of these guys and they're pretty trustworthy. So yeah, I'll give you guys the link for that that form now. Let me just copy it. But yeah, I'll send you guys through some builds. I think there's 2 examples of builds in there that you can use that we've already used before. Some of our Auckland and Northland pantries have used these build plans. Yeah, so that's just the form. From there, I will get back to you guys ASAP with everything else. Okay, we've got a question in the question box. Do you have any advice to how to get new people interested in being involved in both donating and using the pantry themselves? To get new people interested and involved. So basically, just using your contacts you already have. So your own friends, your own family, and your own neighbors, and word of mouth. Like, as much as we like to say social media is it, word of mouth is really where that trust comes in. And yeah, we've really found that people just, it spreads like wildfire. Once one person knows it's there, then their family knows it's there, their neighbors know it's there. It makes you more comfortable to use it, knowing that more people are using it and accessing it. And to really push, what we did in our early days was we pushed to death that it's not just for people who are experiencing poverty. It's not just for people who have nothing in their cupboard. You know, a need is a need. Who are we to judge what that need is? But that's another issue that you could potentially run into as someone new to the kaupapa, is when you sometimes people get a mentality that, I'm just gonna say, a judgmental mentality, where they become the judge and the jury over who needs what from their pantry. But we kind of adopted this mentality where once the food is in there, it's gone, and you just don't think about it. Like, don't put it in there unless you want it to go. And yeah, so we went through a lot of trials with that in the first year. Pātaka Kai is not for everybody. It's not a kaupapa for everyone. Sometimes it's better to go and volunteer at your local food bank, or actually start your own rather than doing this, because this is all unmanned, and it's it's meant to be unmanned, it's meant to be no red tape, and it's meant to be 24/7. That's the beauty of Pātaka Kai, is that sense of privacy and anonymity for those who do need it, and just being accessible at all times, without the headache without the headache that you have to go through sometimes. Getting new people interested, but also social media is really good. Having an event if you can. So we started it before COVID, so we were actually able to have parties when we launched the Pātaka Kai, and having a proper opening with a ribbon cutting ceremony and everything like that. That's how we started them back in 2018. We made them an event, and the initial event, you know, would have flyers, would go around, take them to all the houses in that block, and I think it worked really well. I know we've got to navigate that space now with COVID. But community groups are also a good one. If you're on Neighbourly, if you're not on Neighbourly, get onto Neighbourly, because the kind of people who frequent Neighbourly, which is a website, will be the ones who will be awesome supporters of your Pātaka Kai. Cool. So we've got Jamie. Can you recommend any generous suppliers who can donate goods to us? Yes, yes, I can. So really just you want to keep it local. So you want it to be for your community, by your community. So if you can, contact your local supermarkets. Pack and Saves and Countdowns, they're already aware of us. They know who we are. They know what we do. Pack and Saves and Countdowns are really good. And we have a good relationship with Sanitarium across Aotearoa through ADRA NZ. So, but often when we get donations from them, they'll come directly to me with the information, you know, we've got X amount, can you find, or can you pick it up or something like that. Because they're based in Auckland, it's a bit restricting around that, and we will actually find that a lot of our donors are in Auckland. Of course, we do open it up to other areas if they can come and pick it up themselves, but we're all running on nothing. We're all running on no money, no petrol vouchers, nothing like that. So it really does take a self-starter to be able to see this through, because we haven't had any funding since our initial startup. Actually, right when we started up, we didn't have funding. I think it was a few months in, we got a little bit of funding because we had an inundation of, is that a word? We were inundated with requests for people to join the kaupapa, and we really wanted to help them at that time. So we got funding and we built, it was 80 pantries. And that's the only funding we've had since back then. So after that, nothing. So we haven't wanted to look for funding either, because we really do believe that the resources, the food is out there. It's just a matter of connecting the dots and making sure that it can get to where it needs to be, which is in our communities, not in the rubbish tips. Yeah, cool. But I'll tell you one story about, we've got two kaitiaki in Waikato. They're a mother and daughter team. They are relentless when it comes to getting donations, that they've had to go and start their own food bank because they have too much kai. And that's just off the back of having a Pātaka Kai pantry. So now they're actually not a Pātaka Kai anymore, and they're starting that process of registering as a food bank, because they've made those connections really strong over the past 3.5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Cool. So Morgan, how do you deal with misuse and vandalisation? Getting a tough skin. Getting a tough skin, and knowing that in the early days it's probably going to happen, being prepared for it and having a good support system around you, so that when something does happen, you're not stuck looking after and cleaning it up yourself. So when I started mine, weekly something was happening, something as silly as, oh, the flower's been ripped open and all over the road now, you know, little things like that, to tagging, to literally being pushed over. All these things have happened across our whole network. Some people have shut down because of it, but yeah, we really had to have a tough skin and to not be scared to ask for help. So whether that's from your own family, your neighbours, anybody else that you know was invested in their pātaka for whatever reason, it could be because they donate regularly or because they use it regularly, those people are going to want to help because it's helping them in some way, whether it's helping them to eat at the end of the day or whether it's helping them to share aroha. Those people are the ones that you want to actually get around you as a team and work on it together. And just over time, the awareness comes to your community where they know that actually this is doing something really good. And if I keep messing with it, one day it's not going to be here. And yeah, it'll stop. It'll stop eventually. Okay, we've got inspiring communities. How do other groups manage safety of food going off in the heat? So yeah, that's a major thing because a lot of our kaitiaki, when they're first on board, they're very enthusiastic. As time goes by, they kind of leave it to the community to look after, but in saying that they also stop these kind of things, which is the regular checking, but it needs to happen. That's your responsibility as a kaitiaki to ensure that the food, to the best of your ability, is good. And so regular checks, regular cleans, whether that means every day, hopefully it means every day. But also if you know that, say for example, someone keeps donating bread every day, but your pantry gets used like twice a week, maybe to just put a sign in there saying, we don't accept these items for these reasons. It's as easy as that sometimes. And a lot of people use their social media. They'll create a social media page specifically for their pantry where they can get those comms out. And you know, not everyone's on social media, but at least you're using all the ways that you can to connect and communicate. And over time, you should see a change. Yeah, Facebook community is awesome. How much does it cost to set one up? I think the builds that we have the plans for, they cost around $200 if you were to pay off your own back, but we don't encourage you to do that. So we encourage you to find a way around it. Generally, Maitatian and Bunnings, they have a special community fund that you can tap into. You just have to apply for it. And they may also actually put it together for you if you, yeah, hopefully, if you can weasel your way in there for them to actually do the build as well. But generally, yeah, you can apply to them and just make that need known. And like, even if you want to offer for them to put a sign on your pātaka that has their logo on it, you got to do what you got to do, you know? Do you have a list of what to donate and what? Yes, we do. So that'll be in the package that comes through to you once you fill out the form. It will be great to set up some links, social media that have been set up for some Pātaka Kai. Yep, that'll all be in there as well. Yeah. Lois?
Do we join Pātaka Kai? Do we fill out a form and join it? Is that what you mean?
If you would like access to the resources that I've just spoken about, and if you would like to be listed on our website, yes.
Oh, yes, thank you.
You don't have to. If you want to go ahead and do the concept yourself in your own way, that's absolutely fine as well.
Thank you.
No worries.
I'm more involved in the community garden. Beside our Pātaka Kai, we've got sort of two groups working on each. So I don't particularly want to sign up myself, but is there a way on your website or something that people can sign up if the Pātaka Kai group in our community isn't already, because they might already be linked up with you, I'm not sure.
What was the name? Oh, what area are you in?
Marfell and Taranaki in New Plymouth.
Yes, I think that one's already registered.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I know there's one in Marfell. It might not be the same one, so I'm just going
to. It is the same one. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And it's been there for about 3-4 years now. Is it that one?
How long? Ours? Maybe less than that. I would have thought about 18 months, maybe.
Yeah, probably the kia ora, everyone. Awesome kōrero, Candice. Thank you. Yeah, there was another one on Cook Street in New Plymouth, but they had to shut that one because there was too much of a mess being made. But yeah, so there's a new one in Marfell, connected, as MJ was saying, connected to a community garden that's going really well at the moment.
Awesome. I actually don't think that one is registered. I think the one that's registered with us isn't actually there anymore. So I'm just going to put in the website in the chat.
That would be cool. Yeah.
At any time, anyone can go to that website and go to the register page and have a read through. And if they would like to, they can register at that time.
Yeah, I'll just pass that on to the people that are actually leading that. Just a comment about getting a pātaka built. We had Venture Taranaki wanting to try out experiment with Hempcrete. So they've actually just built us a Hempcrete Artica, and so this is on the community garden land, but it's facing the street, and the other group actually run the Pātaka.
That's so exciting.
We've still got to finish it, but we think it will be amazing for this whole issue of in the heat. How does it goes off? So once the shelves get built, hopefully in the next working day, we're just experimenting with how that might be, because it feels like it would keep the food a whole lot cooler.
That is amazing. What is your community group's Facebook, if you have one?
Well, we've got the Marfell Community Garden. It'll be the Marfell Pātaka Kai, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, I'm just interested to hear little gems from other people in the room too. But that's our little offering of one little collaboration. We have had good support from Mitre 10 and things for the garden as well.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
But and some of those other businesses. But I just thought that might be one unique sort of idea that.
That definitely is. I'm checking it out. Yes, okay. I'm clicking into here right now and having a look.
Sharing. That's
Marfell's just Oz has just put the stuff link in about that.
Awesome.
Oh, cool. Any other questions or tips out there to share?
So from here, do you fellas know what you're doing?
And I was just kind of wondering, if you're setting up a Pātaka Kai, how much of an investment is it? Is it better to kind of do it with a group of people, or if you're just kind of deciding on your street that it might be a nice idea, is that going to be a big like time investment for just one person? Like what's the kind of good strategy for that?
For one person, yes, I would say it's a huge time investment. Unless you want it, or unless you don't mind it taking forever. It's always, better to have more hands involved and more people to oversee it. And it's just definitely, I recommend getting a group together to work on the project together, because also you'll have different contexts. So, one person might be able to hook up with some paint, another person might be able to build it, another person might have contacts in the food industry. So I recommend get you a good solid team together that are invested and that are on the same waka as you, that have the same hearts as you, and it should be much easier to see it get off the ground and to continue to be supported, because their connections will be interested and it'll just go on and on like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Kia ora, Candice. I'm from Otipoti as well, and so we have one in North East Valley, and we're just with Rebecca, we're also exploring one up in Pine Hill, so building one there. But I'm just curious as to how your relationship with businesses works. I guess we've tried. I don't think a lot of our hospitality kind of small food businesses actually have that much food waste, and the one in North East Valley is very much just the community gardens or people, small, just individuals dropping stuff off, but we don't have, businesses. So talk us through that.
I'd have to say we are a little bit lucky over here in the sense that we live in Auckland and an urban area. There are businesses left, right, and centre, and there isn't as much of a zero waste mindset in a lot of our businesses. Like, they do create a lot of waste, and we just happen to be there when they're ready to hand it over. So I do know that in areas like where you are, it can be harder. In that case, I would say potentially looking at some, because you can do this, you can look at funding yourself. I just wasn't able to give the rundown on how to do that, but you could potentially look at some funding or assistance through MSD or other food rescue groups. So trying to think of another food rescue group, because I know that, oh, what are they called?
Kiwi Harvest.
Kiwi Harvest.
Yeah.
Kiwi
yeah.
Harvest. They used to, I don't know if it still applies, but they had a policy where they would not donate to any Pātaka Kai, and it was actually written in their contracts
Yeah.
that none of their stock was to go into a Pātaka Kai, but I'm not sure if that still stands.
Yeah. I think I've heard that before as well. Yeah.
And the reasoning around that, for anybody who's unsure why that might be, is just because Pātaka Kai are generally unmanned and they're unsupervised, and so you just don't know, there's that risk. There is a risk there for people's health. If food that shouldn't be in a cupboard goes into a cupboard, like meat, something like that. So there is a risk around it. But when it comes to risk, because I didn't actually speak on this yet, with the health and safety, you're pretty safe. As a kaitiaki, you're pretty safe. There'll be a sign inside your Pātaka Kai that will say XYZ can be donated here and ABC cannot be donated here. And also a disclaimer that says anybody using the pantry needs to check the food quality themselves, and if they're unsure, to just not touch it. So that takes off some of the heat from us as kaitiaki to having that responsibility of people's health. Because at the end of the day, we're just trying to help. And I'd really hate to see anybody go down for anything like that. And we won't, because you're gonna have those disclaimers in place.
So do you know about, can I ask a question?
Yes, Kristen.
Yeah. Thanks. Hello. Do you know about all of the pantries? I can't say it. Pātaka. Is that the word for pantry?
Yes.
Because the one down the road's just been disappeared, and it's at Morningside.
Morningside.
Yeah, just curious what happened to it.
So this is another thing. If you everybody that's in this group today, if you join up with Pātaka Kai, it's really, really helpful to stay in touch, because a lot of the time when things like this happens at Morningside, I don't actually hear about it. And so I've got an address on our website that says there's a pantry there, and then I'll get an email from a very upset member of public who's hungry saying, I went here and you don't have a pantry and what's going on? And then I have to front that. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, no one told me, Yeah, so I actually don't know what happened with that one, Kristen, but I'm making a note and I'm gonna find out. Morningside pantry is gone.
Yeah, it's pretty well attended and food gets dropped off quite often. I drop food off there because I do dumpster diving.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'll find out. If they are registered, I'll find out. If they're not registered, then I won't have their contact details. That's another thing, guys. You guys might see pantries and communities that say Pātaka Kai, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're connected with us. We don't own that name Pātaka Kai. Pātaka Kai Free Open Street Pantries is a registered name, but Pātaka Kai itself is not owned by anyone, so anyone can use that term. But yeah, I'll have a look. Thank you, Kristen.
It's too late to join as to host a Neighbours Day, but are you saying you're going to share about how to join other people's Neighbours Day events?
It's not too late to join.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
it was closed.
No, still going. People can register throughout the week, the 10 days as well. And it can be a small intention, like dropping off some fresh produce to your neighbour, or writing some postcards and dropping them off to people's letterboxes, or making some kai and sharing it. There's lots of ways. We're not seeing any big community events this year, obviously, because of COVID. So people are getting a lot more creative in ways they're connecting with their community.
That's really great.
Yeah, kia ora. Just another question for Candice, if I may. So one of the pātaka that we run is in a rural community in coastal Taranaki, Pariaka Pā. Again, mostly connected to our marakai, to our community garden. So the pātaka is exclusively supported by the mara, except for I think during lockdown, one of the Pākehā farmers dropped off some watercress into the pātaka, which is pretty cool. But we don't have anything else come into the pātaka. Have you got like any advice for rural based pātaka who might be different to an urban environment?
I reckon contact one of the big food producers directly that needs some PR, and convince them to do a PR stunt where they drop off some food to you guys, and they can make it a whole big shebang, but at the end of the day you get a lot of kai. So we had Best Foods Mayonnaise contact us, and this happened in Auckland, but they also were open to doing, I think they had locations in Wellington and Hamilton as well. So they were willing to do the travel that was needed to happen for them to do this PR. So they dropped off Best Foods Mayonnaise to about 10 pantries in Auckland, 5 in Hamilton and 5 in Wellington. And also in Auckland, they had some ex-Warriors players drop it off, do rugby balls. And also at the same time, I told them, let's be realistic here. When people are hungry, they're not gonna wanna see mayonnaise in the pantry. They wanna see a full meal. So I managed to convince them to also supply us with potatoes, bread, tuna, and pasta as well as part of that package. So it's just, yeah, look for someone that needs some good PR and hit them up. That's my key advice, because yeah, they can really make a really cool PR situation out of it, and your community can benefit from it too, which is the whole point, really. So people can get class. And yeah, it's really good to hear about your pātaka there in Parihaka. I'm from Taranaki too, so sure. Awesome.
Cool.
Sorry, another quick question.
Yeah.
I've seen a Pātaka Kai that was like a multi-purpose thing, like it had a blackboard on the side of it and people would write messages. Like, is that common?
Yep. In the first year of us getting together, people were being very creative, and they wanted to know the effect that their pātaka had on their community. So some of them had little diaries inside them. Some of them had the blackboard on the side with some chalk. The chalk would always go missing though. And also just in there having, some of them in Auckland, but further out south, have seedlings. So they'll share seedlings and kai. Of course, we've got the pātakas that have the gardens alongside. What else do we have?
So they put the seedlings inside the structure, or? Yeah,
so they'll have like a section down the bottom that's for seedlings, and then the top is for kai, something like that. Also with my one behind me over here, it actually has a buddy. So its buddy is the same build, but it's painted kind of like that structure behind it, very colourful. And that was a pātaka puka puka. So that was being used as a community library of sorts. Yeah, and those two stood side by side until there was a storm, and it fell over and no good. But yeah, definitely like get creative with it. Whatever your community needs and whatever need you can see, find a way to meet that through your pātaka. You know, they don't have to follow the template at all. Every community is different. So it'll be really cool to see something fun happening.